to the moon on April 1st. Today I will be explaining the rules to Apollo, a game inspired by NASA moon missions. This is a fun game where you try to recreate either the Gemini or the Apollo mission to the moon. This game has two different types of players. First, we have the one player playing as mission control down in Houston, and everybody else playing as the astronauts up in the spacecraft. First, I'm going to be going over the cards and tokens and everything for the mission control player. The most important part of the mission control player is the damage board. This shows the level of damage that all the different types of systems have taken so far. This is, it comes with sliders to help keep track and also instructions to help you inform the astronauts as to what they're able to do, or instructions for you as the astronauts tell you what they are doing. Next, we have the crisis cards. In the event a system goes into a crisis, you will be drawing the top card of the crisis cards. This will give you a set of instructions to follow to help get rid of the crisis. Next, we have the communications tokens. These are used by the mission control player to be able to communicate to the astronauts during the mission. We also have the experiment cards. During the mission, the astronauts have to complete experiments, and mission control is the player in charge of keeping track of what the astronauts have done towards the experiment. It also comes with a marker that you can use to mark how far along they have come in the experiment. Lastly, we have the these little electronic boards and electronic pieces. These are for a very specific type of crisis card that I will explain a little later on. The next thing that the mission control person will control is the actual game board itself. The game board, there are two different types of game boards. One is for the Gemini mission and one is for the Apollo mission. I'll be explaining the Gemini mission. The Apollo mission works exactly the same way, it's just slightly longer because the astronauts have to go land on the moon and return to Earth. So it's just a longer version of the same exact game. This board comes with cards that represent what you have to do to complete each stage in the mission and a marker that you can use to mark how far along you are in the mission. The astronaut players have their own board that explains what they can do during their action turn, during the action phase, and a board for the roll phase that I'll go into more detail a little bit later. They also have plus-minus tokens that will allow them to change the number on the dice that they rolled, and a turn token so they can keep track of who went first. When it comes to setting up the game, your table should look very similar to this. One big difference is that the mission control board should be facing away from the astronauts. They should not be able to see this board. I currently have it facing this way, so that way you guys can see the whole board. So we're gonna keep that in mind. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take out the mission control board and put on the alert tokens. These are to inform the astronauts if something's about to go into a crisis. Next, you're going to take the system board, make sure you put the sliders in there and set them all to 8 because all systems are healthy during launch. Next, you're going to take the crisis cards, sort them out based on the system, and give them a shuffle within the system so that way it's random as to which crisis card you get whenever you play. You are also going to take out the mission board based on whichever game you are playing and the Ziploc bag that is associated with that board. In this Ziploc bag is going to be the experiment cards for that particular mission and all of the stage cards. You're also going to need to make sure you grab the token that is associated with your mission. These computer boards and the chips can be set aside and only need to be brought out when they are needed for that specific crisis game. You're going to make sure all of the stage cards are set face up next to the mission board, and as you complete those steps, you're going to flip them over. You're going to make sure the astronaut boards are laid out just right in front of there, have all the plus-minus tokens, dice, and turn token set to the side, and make sure the communication tokens are within reach of the mission control player. First, I'm going to be going over the roll phase of the game. This one can be easily explained with both mission control and astronauts together. The astronauts are going to ask mission control how many dice they are allowed to roll. Mission control is allowed to tell them, without the use of a communications token, how many dice based off their life support system. If everything is healthy, then they get 8 dice, but the worse it gets, the less dice they get. The astronauts are then going to roll the dice. Whoever has the first turn token is going to roll the dice, and they're going to organize them on the damage board that is right here. Those dice will be organized based off the number that is face up on the dice after it is rolled. The color does not matter at this point. So what you're going to do is put all of the 1s in the row labeled 1, 2s with the 2, 3 with the 3s, 4s with the 4, and so on. 6s are going to go on the bottom and they will be saved for later. Once the dice are laid out on the damage board, you can then take the 6s and put them wherever you want. They will be used as wild cards. Now, the important thing to note whenever you place the 6s is that the number of empty squares in that row is going to determine how much damage that specific system gets. So you're going to want to put the 6s somewhere with with the least amount of dice, so that way that system doesn't take as much damage. So I'm going to put them right here. Let's say, for example, you end up with 4 of a certain number. So you're going to put that in the extra spaces next to that row. Those cannot be used to help reduce damage somewhere else, but they will give you a plus-minus token that you can use for later whenever you go into the action phase. Once the 6s are all doled out, the astronauts are going to tell flight control how much damage each system takes. This will be done without the use of comm tokens, so you don't need to worry about that. Once that is done, mission control will set a 4-minute timer and the action phase will begin. If this is your first time playing the game and you're still new figuring it out, I would suggest not using the 4-minute timer. While it is plenty of time, it can add some stress that is unneeded when you're just learning how to play a game. First, I will be going over what the astronauts can do during the action phase. There are 6 different actions the astronaut can take. The first action is the flight control action. The astronaut who chooses to take this action can use as many dice as they want from the pool to put on the card based off what stage they're trying to complete. You do have to complete the stages in order. The card does tell you how many dice and what kind of dice it is looking for the stage to be complete. So for example, for stage 2, it just needs 4 dice with the same number on it. Color doesn't matter. Now, it is important to note that you do not have to put all 4 or 3 or however many dice you need on the one turn. However, the dice do have to stay there until that stage is complete. So if you do not finish this stage during that action phase, you will not get those dice back during the roll phase. Another important thing to note is every time an astronaut takes an action, the marker moves closer and closer to reaching that stage. And in order to win the game, you have to complete that stage before the marker reaches that point. So you want to make sure you do those fairly quickly. The second action an astronaut can take is the power distribution action. The astronaut who takes this action can take however many black dice as they would like and put them next to the power distribution section of their board. Then, depending on the number that is on that dice, determines how many adjustments they can make to the system health. So, for example, if they use 1 black die with a number 1 on it, they can give some damage to the experiment section to help boost their life support, and so on. The third action they can take is the life support action. This astronaut can take as many yellow dice as they would like and put them next to the life support section. Then, depending on the number face up on that dice, determines how many plus minus tokens that they can get. So if they use the yellow 1, they would only get 1 plus minus token. These can be used to help change the number on the dice for either the stage cards or the experiments. The fourth action an astronaut can take is the experiment action. The astronaut who chooses to do this can take as many dice as they want and put them in the experiment section and hope they can be used towards completing the experiment. Here's the thing, the astronaut does not know what the experiment is, so they have to use the communications tokens with mission control to help communicate what that experiment is looking for, or they just have to guess. Now, any dice used here can be used again in the roll phase because mission control keeps track of how many correct dice they put in the experiments. You do need to complete 2 or 3 depending on the mission, 2 or 3 experiments depending on the mission in order to win the game. So you want to make sure you do not forget about this. I will go into a little bit more detail about how the experiments work because mission control does most of their work with that one. The fifth action an astronaut can take is the communications action. They can take however many odd numbered dice that they want and put them next to the communications section on their board. This will then give mission control however many comms tokens there are based off the number on the die. The mission control can then use this to communicate the information on the experiments, which system is getting low, and so on and so forth. So it is very important to make sure you grab some of these. The last action an astronaut can take is a repair action. This can be used for any system on the board. You do just have to determine which system it is when you take that action. When you do that, you need to take as many dice as you want and make sure they are in ascending order on the board. So for example, if I want to repair the communications, I would start with a low number and then however many dice I want to add, put it next to them. You get 1 point for every dice in the order for the repair, and you get an extra point for every dice that matches the color of the first one. So for example, if my ascending order looks like this, I will then get 4 points because I have 4 dice, and then an extra 2 points because 2 of those dice match the color of the first dice to use. And these will be used specifically for communications. Next, I will be going over the actions that mission control takes. The first thing that they do is they track the mission. Every time an astronaut takes an action, they move the token one spot across the board. It is mission control's job to keep track of that. The next thing that they can do is raise the alert lights. Whenever a system is getting low, so 3 or less damage, you raise a light. It does not tell the astronauts which one there is, but it does tell them that something's getting low and they gotta keep an eye out on what they are doing. You do have 3 lights that you can flip. The next thing that mission control can do is use the communication tokens to talk to the astronauts. These are used to give one singular piece of information, generally relating to the experiment or the system board. This can be either the number that needs to be on the die for the experiment, the color of the die, the number of dice needed, or which system is getting low, or for example, where it is at on the board. There are 4 special communications tokens that mission control is going to want to keep an eye out before they use them. These are adding 1 to any system, so reducing 1 of the damage, allowing any colored dice for the experiment, giving the astronauts an extra dice during the roll phase, or transfer the damage from a roll to a different system. So you want to make sure you look at those communication tokens before you use them because these can be very helpful. The next thing mission control does is let the astronauts know when communications are down. If the communication system gets low enough, they will not be able to communicate with the astronauts. That means they are not allowed to use any of their comms tokens. The astronauts do know that the comms are down because the light will be flipped. The last thing mission control does is help track the experiments. So every time an astronaut places a dice on their board that corresponds with what they need to complete the experiment, they will take their little marker and move it across the card as they complete it. As soon as a experiment is complete, You will flip it over, read the result, which will most of the time give you a bonus, and set it off to the side and start the next experiment. The last thing that Mission Control does is take care of a system when they are in crisis. So whenever the tracker reaches the crisis section on the board, they will flip over the top crisis card for whatever system it is, read what's on the card, and do that action. In some cases, they will have to complete a special mini game to help resolve the crisis. So here is how you play that mini game. In the event this mini game needs to be played, you will take the top of the computer chip boards and place it on there. Then Mission Control will start the 4-minute timer. So Mission Control will be completing this during the astronauts' action phase. If they finish it before the 4-minute timer is up, the astronauts get to continue the phase. If they do not complete the game before the time is up, the astronauts re-roll, you give damage, and then you continue the game. Here's how you play the game. Mission Control has their own special 2 dice. They will roll the dice, and based off the number on the dice, they will then find the chip that matches that number. All of the chips have the same numbers, so you want to make sure you get doubles. Now, the astronauts are allowed to give some of their dice to Mission Control to help with their roll. Some of these have 3 numbers on them. You can also, especially if you have multiple dice, let's say you really need this 4-4 right here, you can set the 4 aside and then keep rolling until you get the number that you want. Whenever you roll and get the chip that you want, you then place it on the board. You want to make sure one side is touching the yellow that's in the corner, and you want to make a path all the way to the yellow in the other corner. The red spots cannot be covered, and the path has to be touching the entire way. Diagonals do not count. Like I said earlier, once the game is done, the astronauts will then get to use whatever's remaining on the timer to complete the action phase. Once the crisis is solved, you will then get to move the damage board up to 4 and continue with the game. In order to win the game, you have to make sure you complete each of the stages on the stage card and 2 or 3 experiments depending on your mission before reaching the stage 5. If you reach the stage 5, all of that's done, including the condition on the stage 5 card. Congratulations, you win. If not, then unfortunately you lose the game. I'm going to reiterate that you have to make sure you complete the stuff on the stage card before the marker reaches that stage. If the marker reaches the stage and this is not complete, the game is automatically over, and unfortunately the mission is not complete. Now let's move on to a practice round. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all of the dice and roll it. I will be playing as the astronaut. Moon Punch over here will be Mission Control. So I should probably move Moon Punch to the other side. Before the roll phase starts, I'm gonna go, hey Moon Punch, how many dice do we get? Because it's the beginning of the game and all of our systems are healthy, we get all 10 of our dice. So I will roll those and place them on the board based off their numbers. So I rolled 3 6s, so I'm gonna put 2 of them in the communications row. Oops. And I'm gonna go ahead and put 1 of them in the flight control row, and then I'm going to report the damage to Moon Punch. So flight control takes 1 point of damage. Power distribution also takes 1 point of damage. Okay, life support does not take any damage. Experiments takes 2 points of damage. And communications takes 1 point of damage. At this point, Moon Punch will start the 4-minute timer. I will not be using a 4-minute timer for this round. As soon as they say go, we get to use the dice. So, while it is just me, we will not worry about passing the turn marker, but if there's more than just one astronaut, everybody will take a turn with the dice. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some plus-minus tokens. So I'm going to put, I'll put the 4 over here with the life support, and I will get 2 plus-minus tokens. Okay, I am then going to grab 3 of these 3s and put them here, and then I'm also going to grab a 2 with one of my plus-minus tokens here to complete this stage, so now I don't have to worry about it. Next, I am going to take one of the, let's see. So communications needs odd numbered dice. I only have 1 left, so I'm going to use this one to give Moon Punch over here 1 communication token. Next, I am going to guess with the experiments. I'm going to put a 6 and a 2 right here. Now, if Moon Punch wants, they can use the communication token to tell me a piece of information so I know what to do for next time. But in this case, because none of these dice are correct, Moon Punch will not be moving their marker at all. And then you do not have to use all the dice, so I'm going to choose to end my turn there. One thing I did forget to do while I was doing is Moon Punch is supposed to be moving the marker for every action that I take. So the first action I did was to get a plus-minus token, which will move it here. The second action was completing the stage, so I'll move that here for that one. The next thing that I did was get the communication token, which will move 1 here. And the last thing that I did was try with the experiment, which will move 1 here. Normally, Moon Punch would be doing this while I am playing. However, because I was kind of playing as both, it slipped a little. But Mission Control is in charge of that. If I choose to be done or the timer runs out, we gather up all the dice and start the roll phase, and the turn token moves to the next player. And that's how you play Apollo, a game inspired by NASA moon missions. Thanks for watching, and we'll sip you later.